Hello everybody and welcome back. Today I'm going to show you another video of how we support children's early reading development, and within my last video I talked about how we teach the sounds in read write ink in a specific order, and that early on when your children are learning to read words and to develop their blending and their segmenting skills, we use whiteboards and magnetic tiles. So here is an example. You can see that the children have been learning to build words by moving the magnetic tiles around the board, and we always encourage them to move the sounds to the top left, just to remind them that in English we always start to read and write from the top left of the page. Now, once your children are able to build words with support, the next step is, as they become more confident and they develop more fluency and they're more able, they will be able to read 3-letter words independently. After they can do this, we want them to then start being able to read and build 4-letter words. So, for example, sand, sand is a 4-letter word, and it uses phoneme sounds. It uses these sounds here that are made up of one letter, and each letter has a pure sound which matches to it. And when the sounds are together and they are pushed together, we can blend and read a word. For example, sand, sand, sand. Now, the next step in read write ink, after the children have learned all of the sounds of the alphabet, is for them to recognise that sometimes sounds can be a little bit trickier, and instead of one sound being on its own and making a pure, each letter being on its own and making a pure sound, sometimes they will see 2 letters together, like here on the bottom row. I'm going to show you the sounds here with my sound cards, and I'm going to model to you how we say each of these sounds, why they use 2 letters, and how they can be used within reading. So here we have the sound sh, kwa, nk, ch, ng, and th. And when we learn to read, we teach the children that sometimes letters like to have special friendships. They like to be special friends with other letters, just like your children do when they're in class. Everybody likes to have a special friend that they like to play with. So, for example, let's look at sh. We would ask the children, what letters can you see? And we would break the sound sh down, and we want the children to recognise that there are 2 letters here. We can see the letter s and the letter h. But this time, this sound is a little bit more difficult, because when we read this letter sound, we wouldn't read it as 2 separate sounds. We wouldn't read it as suh, suh. We would teach them the sound shh. So that is why it's a bit tricky. It's about children learning through repetition and learning to use their memories and to just practice and embed this skill, that sometimes when letters join together, they become a diagraph and they actually make a different sound. So when we teach this sound, the sound sh, we would show the children the picture. You can see here, they've still got the snake and the horse here, but there's actually a story that goes with this new sound at the bottom. It tells you here, it says, shh, says the horse to the hissing snake. So the children would learn that there is a story that matches this sound. And through reading the story and learning to remember it, they will remember that when they need to write or when they are reading the sound sh, they need to remember that there is a snake who is hissing, and the horse tells the snake to shh. The story is just, again, another prompt to help the children to remember that sometimes two letters can make one sound and what letters are needed within this sound through the story. So, I'll show you the other ones. This sound is qu, and we teach the children that the queen never goes anywhere without her umbrella. Qu, they are special friends. This is nk, and this picture card is a rat in a cage, and it's a very stinky rat, and the rat says, "I think I stink." Now, another thing that helps us, at the bottom of the card, there are words that you can see here, and all of these words have the nk sound in them. And these words just help us when we're teaching this sound in phonics, and they are the words that we would practice reading together as a group as we are practicing this sound. We've got ch, and the story is the caterpillar tickles the horse's nose, and the horse says achoo, and he sneezes. We have ng, and we see here the picture's a little bit harder to remember. We say there is a thing on a string, and the cat looks very confused. Thing on a string. And again, there are some words that we would teach the children as we learn to read and recognise this sound. And the last diagraph is th. And again, there's a story about a princess who is trapped in a tower, and the horse rescues her. And we say that the princess said, "Thank you." And we really encourage the children to say this sound correctly by sticking their tongues out ever so slightly so that they are using the pure sound th and not confusing it with f for flower, because they are pronounced slightly differently. Again, we need to use the correct pure sound to be able to read words effectively. I hope you found this useful. I'm going to show you quickly how we can use these sounds to help us to read. So, for example, if I wanted to teach the word that, we would have these sounds, and we would encourage the children, before they read the word, to just have a look and to think really carefully, are there any special friends, any diagraphs within this word? And they would look and they would think, no, at is on its own, that's not a special friend, this isn't, there it is. There is our new tricky sound. And we would remember, and by doing that, before we read the word, it will prompt and remind them to say the correct sound. Otherwise, they might be tempted to just use their previous learning and to say t-h. And if they do that, they cannot read this word. So if they read this incorrectly, to-h-at, to-hat, they can't read it correctly. So we always prompt them, can you see any special friends? Yes. What is it? It's the sound th, th-at, th-at, that. And that just helps the children to be able to read the 4-letter word. I'll give you another example. We've got here. Is this. There's now another example. We'll change it so we're not using th anymore. Here we go. So because it's a new word and we can see a new special friend, I would ask the children, can you see any special friends? They would find it. Here it is. What is the sound? We'd use the picture set card if they cannot remember to prompt our memories. It's ch. Okay? Ch in chin. And if there were any words that we were covering or were reading that the children were unfamiliar with, because it was new vocabulary, we would always have a discussion as well to teach them what the words mean, and we would practice learning how we can use them in a sentence, and if we had objects so we could show them pictures to make their learning more memorable, we would do this as well. Okay, so I hope you found this useful and that you've now learnt a little bit about how we teach diagraphs and children to read 4-letter words in Read Write Ink. Thank you. Goodbye.